Alright, there's no PowerPoint for this video because it's going to be a step-by-step setup for a SMS texting system. Now, you've got a script with this particular video, and we're going to get to that in a second. You can start it up, and hopefully by now you do have a trial version of Dreamweaver started. So I've just opened up this file, this script that I've sent you, and we're going to make a couple changes to it. Primarily right here where it says username, password, and DB name. There is a very, very, very small amount of programming that you have to do, but you can always pause this video and have a look at what I'm doing, because I'm going to be setting up this script from scratch and showing you how to send text messages in which you can put your affiliate link and get it right to a person's cell phone. We might as well talk about the pros and cons about this. So the cons are probably that's an understatement, because this is really an untapped market. A few people are getting into this now, and the big thing, if you caught the last part of the Black Hat videos part 2, I think I got into the fact that it's a very this industry is in its infancy. You can use the same sort of technologies for emailing and send it to text to phones. It's a very simple process. It's basically using a phone number in front of a provider, the phone number that you want to send to in front of a provider, and I'm going to show you how to cycle through phone numbers to make this happen. So some of the advantages are, you know what the big advantage is? It hits the end user. There's nothing to block you. You could have a blacklisted IP. You could have, it doesn't matter the condition of your server. They always receive a text message. If you send a text message out through this script, the end user will receive it. There's no anti-spam mechanisms in place. There's Gmail and Yahoo and all these email providers. They're not watching you. All these anti-spam organizations aren't watching you because we're not dealing with them at all. We're going right to the cell phone providers. It's very, very cool, and it always inboxes. It always hits the end user. So if you send out 10,000, all 10,000 are going to receive it. They will get a text message. So we'll get back to the username, password, and database name in a second. Don't actually run this script on your server yet. Excuse me, because we haven't set it up. The first thing we have to do is zoom out correctly. And of course, trying to zoom out, I clicked the wrong button. So let's go ahead and go step by step to create a database. Now this is the first page you see when you log into cPanel. This can be a legitimate account, or you could get a compromised cPanel account, as I outlined in the previous video. What you want to look for in here with all these tabs and all this busyness going on is the subheading called Databases. Now mine just happens to be at the top because I use databases all the time, and as you can see I can drag and drop it here. The icon that you want to click on in here is called, I'm afraid to push zoom in, MySQL Database Wizard. So we'll go ahead and click that, and we have to call the database a name. So we will call this SMS. You'll notice that there is a prefix here something that's going to be appended, because the database name is not going to be called SMS all on its own. It's actually going to be called social_em underscore SMS. And this is because hosting companies need a way to be very specific with database names. If it was called SMS, there's possible of cross-contamination, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm trying to speak in a way or give you an understanding in a way that is English rather than all the technical jargon. It doesn't really matter, so because the information we present here is going to be available for us to copy afterwards. After we've created the name, you can see I clicked next, or whatever it was at the bottom there, which will brings us to step 2. This window right here, we have a couple of things we have to do here. We have to create a username. So let's call this user. Make it very simple. There is a password generator. You can go ahead and click the password generator, highlight and copy. Make sure you have copied, and for good measure I'm just going to open up Notepad here and paste that password there. And select this checkbox. I've copied the passwords in a safe place and use that password, and it automatically populates it into the password boxes. Very simple. Now go ahead and click Create User. Now at the very top we can see such and such user with password such and such. Perfect. Great. In this box here we want to select all privileges, which means that everything is available to this user that we've created. We'll go down to the bottom and we will click Next Step, and that will be a summary of sorts. Now this is where you're going to want to pause and grab this information and copy it. We have a username, we've got a database name, and we've got our password here saved up in Notepad. And you'll notice the quotes around the username and password. Do not highlight those. Go ahead and copy your password, or excuse me, the username. Go back to the script that you've opened in Dreamweaver. You can do this in Notepad if you'd like, and go to the username. Close that. Username line here, and if you have Dreamweaver, it's line number 12, so it's at the very top. You can literally open this up in Notepad and see it right away. Make sure not to remove these quotes on either side, and paste the username right there without any spaces. Now, very simple. Obviously we're going to do the same thing with the password field. So go back to Notepad or whatever application you've saved your password into, highlight your password, copy it, paste it where it says password. And notice I'm still got the password within the quotes, and there are no spaces. I know this star may be a little bit confusing. That's just happens to be the one that was generated, the password for me when I generated one. Finally, we're going to grab the database name. Again, we're not going to grab the quotes here. We're going to go back into the script. This is about, well, 12 plus 19, 7 lines down from where we inputted the username and password. You'll see a column there that says DB name. Again, keep the quotes there. Make sure there's no spaces. I know this may seem a little redundant for some people that have a bit of programming experience, but the whole point is I want everybody to be able to go in and create this, and to make this happen, to create this, to take the script and actually do this. So that's why I'm being very, very step-by-step orientated. Now that we've made the changes, we actually have to save the script, save these changes, but we're not going to do that just yet, because I want to point out one thing here. At line number 26, you can see here it says while I doesn't equal 8,000. So what does that mean exactly? Well, you can see I defined it here as 0. so it's 0, and basically what I'm saying is while that variable doesn't equal 8,000, cycle to this script. And what it's doing by cycling through this script is sending out the text message. And every time it cycles through, I add 1 to the number, to the variable I. So the first time I is 0, it cycles through, it sends some text. And then I is 1, and it cycles through, sends some text. And then I is 2, and same thing all the way over until we've reached 8,000 loops. It's actually called a while loop. So you can adjust that number depending on how many texts you want to send out. In addition to that, you can adjust the speed. Let's talk about the speed a little bit. I'm hoping most of you have Dreamweaver so that you can see this a little bit easier, because I'm going to refer right to the lines of code. And if we go down 40 to 48, 48 meaning from the top being 0, every single line, not every single, because we do have some blank spaces here. It would just be easier for you to follow along. 48 lines down, I've got something called you sleep not 2,000, looks like 200,000. 3 zeros. That's actually 2 million. It's in microseconds. In English, that means 2 seconds. And I can adjust that. Any adjustments you want to do here, you probably just want to play with that number. So changing that to 1, I've made that 1 second. Changing it to 5, I've made that 5 seconds. Let's keep it at 2 for now, but just keep in mind that you could remove this line of code altogether if you don't want any buffering at all. In this particular case, I've got a message setup followed by another sleep function here. There's 2 of them. So it's cycling through, it pauses for 2 seconds, it sends the message out to somebody's text phone, it outputs the buffer. In English, that means it presents it to you on the screen so you can see it in your browser. It sleeps for 2 seconds. It sends the next text message, in this case to Verizon, and then it updates some information here in the database, which we will get into in a second so that you know which numbers have been sent to. And then it says sent, and that it adds that additional 1 to the I variable so that it can continue through the loop here at the top. So 0 becomes 1, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, every time it cycles through. Now, which numbers do we begin with? How do we tell this program, let's start at this particular number? It's actually quite easy. It's very, very, very easy. And how do we know if the provider is AT&T, if the cell phone number is Verizon? It's very, very simple to do. In this case, I'm sending the same number to Verizon and Koodo, a company up here called Koodo. This, because it's grabbing it from the database, is all wrapped up in variables. So I've got number dot equals at vmobile.ca. Now, what I'm really doing is sending a specific number, and I'll write it down here so that you can see. And this is just hypothetical number. I don't know if this is a real number or not, and I'm going to show you how to determine if it is. That's how to send from an email to a text. That's actually what you would use. And the cool thing about this is you could go to you can log into Yahoo and email your provider right now just to prove how this works. Just type your number in and type in the domain of your cellular network. So let's pause right there. We all know our cell numbers, but what in Blazes is this domain part? How do we figure that out? So one cool place to do that is through a link provided by David Walsh. And he's got a little bit of write-up on SMS texting with links to the major providers. So right here I've got a compiled list of carriers. I'm going to click that. And I'll highlight this link here so you guys can write this down. This is actually pretty cool. I didn't realize that they had an XLS format, so I think I'll go above and beyond and include this script with the download. It contains the SMS address carrier. So let's say hypothetically you've got, I've never heard of half these companies. Well, there's AT&T. Okay. We can see here the SMS address associated with AT&T is going to be one of these two addresses. You're probably okay to send to one of them or the other, and it will go to your phone. So with that being said, if your carrier is AT&T, you would do @mobile.att.net, proceeding with the phone number that you want to send to beforehand. Now if you take that, not this specific number obviously, but your number with the provider in the Excel file that I will now include within this download script, log into Yahoo or log into wherever you send email, send it to that address, the address with your phone number and your provider, type in a simple message, you will get a text message to your phone. It's magic. So how do we know what an end user's cellular network is? This is the trick, and this is how you do it. I'm going to keep that page open. Let's say, for example, we're targeting a specific city. What I would do is Google something like Toronto cellular phone companies. This is assuming that I'm targeting this city. Obviously, you're going to want to, wherever you're targeting, you'll want to change that accordingly. That's pretty obvious, I think. So I can see here that there are certain providers that are nationwide. This is just a Wikipedia site. Nationwide, Southern Ontario. So that would include in Toronto. Saskatchewan, I don't have to worry about SaskTel Mobility because they're not in Toronto. Manitoba, Quebec, don't have to worry about them. Here I've got Dave Wireless Mobilicity. So let's see, Rogers, Fido, I'm not too sure what that company is. Bell, Virgin, Solo, Northwest. So we've got a few different companies here we have to play with. So let's take Rogers, for example. We will zoom out. We'll go back to our list. I'll just do a quick search for Rogers. And I can see a couple of different options here for Rogers. At the last I've got Rogers, Rogers Canada, Rogers AT&T Wireless. Basically a few different results, but if you look at the right hand side, they're all the same, with the exception of this one, but you'll see how they're all the same in a second. I've got pcs.rogers.com, 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 number at pcs.rogers.com. See, this is the format that we're going to be taking anyways. So regardless of what you see here, I'll zoom back in so it makes sense. SMS. There's no @ symbol. We don't know where the number goes. We don't know what's going on here. By default, you're going to grab one of these and you're going to add the @ symbol at the beginning. So it'll be your number 123 123 1234 at result, or at whatever you grab from that Excel file. Now, in some cases, they'll be kind enough to include it for you. So in this case here, I've got number at pcs.rogers.com. So I know that number is going to be replaced by the phone number. So the idea, or the way, the method that I have to ensure you hit the proper cellular network associated with the number is to cycle through all of them. Now I'll split this up a little bit so that you can see it. But basically, this is a line of code that you want to take, and you're going to copy it right from the use sleep up until the point where it says mail. So let me close this. Every time I zoom in, I get that pop-up. Very, 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 very simple. If I want to add a provider, I'm going to highlight and copy one segment of code. We'll click copy, and we'll put this down at the bottom. And I will paste it. So you can see now I've got 3 providers that I'm sending to. Except the first one is Koodo, second one is Verizon, the third one is Koodo. Now obviously I don't want to send to Koodo twice, so I'm going to go back and grab my Rogers number and place that here. And it actually echoes out which provider it's sent to. So underneath where it says echo, or it prints it to the page. So where it says echo Koodo, I'm going to erase that. I'm going to say Rogers, because this is sending to Rogers. So this is the point. If I've got one phone number, if I've got the first 6 digits, and I follow that by 0000, and then 0001, and then 0002, I'm not going to know in certainty which provider they're connected with. But if I know the geographical area, and I know that these 6 providers, or these 8 providers, or these 10 providers provide service in that area, I'm going to replicate this script over and over to send to every single one so that I know this person will get a text. So for every single number that I text to, I don't know if they're Bell, Verizon, Koodo, Rogers, AT&T. So I'm going to cycle through every single I'm going to send each one of them a message because one of them is going to hit. So please rewind the video and make sure you understand that point. And the way that I add a provider is I grab it from that Excel file. First of all, I did a simple Google search. I know which providers are available to a certain area. I grab the SMS, what's the correct terminology? The SMS address here from this column, and I add it to the, before I grab it, I'm going to make another spot. So let me zoom out so you can see this. There we go. Close this tab. Okay, so I've got 3, and for good measure, I'm going to do this. I'm going to add some code here that says number, we'll just say 1, 2. It's probably very faint on your screen right now, and I'm not zoomed in. 3. So let's zoom in. I'll highlight this, copy it, zoom out. Yay, zoom down. Okay. Hit the enter bar a couple times and paste it. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 providers. But mind you, this one here is just a replication of this one here. So I have to change 2 things. First of all, I could make this, call this 4 right there. I have to change the provider to the next one that I've targeted on the list. I know Toronto has Bell. So let's go ahead and do that actually. We'll just do a search here. We'll search for Bell. So I can see Bell Canada. Okay, great. What's their address? Well, if you send a number to 123.1234 ... at bellmobility.ca, then they'll get the message. Make sure you've got that at symbol there. And don't worry about this. We'll talk about how the number is going to fit into that part after. Let's talk about the message. So right here, I've got 3 different spots that we're going to play with. This is basically to be considered the subject line. Don't worry about this spot here. Don't worry about these quotations or these commas. But what's important is that they remain there. So I've got a quote and a quote. Whatever you put in here, you're not going to remove that quote. Otherwise, you're going to break the code. And actually, if I zoom out, you can see that it came back in error. That's what Dreamweaver does. Does a pretty good job. So do it again so you can see. So it's important to keep those quotes there. Our subject line is going to go where it says anonymous. Our message line is going to go where it says place message here. Now, that's also where you're going to want to put your affiliate link. I did notice some degree of tracking with one particular company. So when you put your affiliate link in, you can see myaflink.com/whatever. Take out the HTTP. This is why. I know that some companies, the minimal tracking that they have, they do recognize links. And the way that they do that is they're still in the dark ages and they look at the text with HTTP. The cool thing is you can take that, including the colon and the forward slashes, and take that out completely. And when a person receives a text message on their phone, it's still a clickable link and it's not detected by the cellular networks. So we've got a message, and we can associate an email address with this. This can be a bogus email. Notice I've got -f email@domain.com. Ignore the -f. That's a specific code to tell the server, tell the recipient to automatically go to this email. So type your email, or whatever email you want, where it says email. This is worth zooming in twice. Where it says email@domain.com. So we could say info@socialemailextractor.net. That's it. Notice that I have not removed the -f or any of this lingo at the back here, the /r/n. That is all very important for our code. We just want to fit it in between the -f and the /r. That's basically it for setting up our message. It's very, very, very simple. The only thing you have to consider is highlighting your message and making sure every line of code, or every provider will say, has the same information. So all I'm doing is just copying and pasting. And notice I'm not copying the whole message. I'm just copying where it says anonymous and moving forward to the end right there. Because I don't want to interrupt any of the information that I have here. The only thing I'm concerned about is changing over that subject line and that message and that email. Speaking of which, I realized I forgot to do something here. So here I've got number 3 is Rogers. Okay, it sends the message, echo Rogers. That prints it out to the screen so you know which provider comes out. Okay, flush it to the buffer so you can see it. Sleep for 2 seconds. Okay, let's go to number 4. Bell. Let's take the number and send it to Bell. Here's the subject line. Here's the message. My affiliate link. Great. Echo Rogers. Well, it's actually not Rogers. It's Bell. So I will go ahead and change that as well. So 2 things, technically 3. When you copy this line of code, this segment of code, is you're going to add the number to it because you've got 5 now. You're going to change the component, the SMS address, and you'll change the name. Now to adjust the speeds for all of these, sending out, we come back to the uSleep function. So technically to run this script or this cycle once through, I've got every 2 seconds here. So I've got 2, 4, I don't even have one there. Let's grab one and put it there. Under Verizon. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It cycles through so that's 20 seconds. 20 seconds to cycle through. To give you an idea of how this works, I'm going to actually run this script. But before I do, let's go in and hopefully that wasn't too complicated. Please review it if it is. It's all very clear. At least it's clear to me, and I've tried my best to give you an idea of how this works. But we're going to get into something a little bit more complicated, but again, it'll be step by step, and we have to play with the database. We've created the database. Now we've got to add a couple of things there. We need to tell the system which numbers to grab and which numbers to use. So once you're done creating the database, just click that Done button or the Home button, and I'm not too sure what it was because the document expired, on the database creation page, and you'll come back to the main window here for cPanel. Now you're going to go look for that subheading that says Databases again, and right beside my SQL database wizard, we'll see something here that's actually a sales ship called PHP My Admin. And go ahead and click that, and it'll open up a new tab. And this is the transmission uncovered, taken off for working with your database. PHP My Admin is awesome. Don't worry about all this stuff going on here. There's a lot of information. Ignore it. Don't worry about it. I'll point this out step by step. And the first step after you click PHP My Admin is to go ahead and click on your username at the left here. In this case, mine is SocialEM. Now you'll see a couple other databases here, but I don't care about these other ones. All I care about is the one that I created. And we all know our database name. In my case, for this example, it was SocialEM. So I'll go ahead and click that. And what you'll see here is a window populate on the right. And it says Create Table. So we're going to create a table, and we're going to create some columns too. Now, I don't know what our table is called, so I'm going to go back to the script because I already have a name for it. Okay, numbers, don't mind me. The table is going to be called numbers. So we'll type that in there, make sure there's no spaces, and we're going to have 3 columns. After you've typed those 2 in, you'll see a button to the right that says Go. Go ahead and click the Go button. You'll see this other window pop up with all these different boxes. Don't worry about them. The first one on the right, we're not only going to be playing with three of them. Under name, the first one to the right, under name, we're going to type in lowercase ID. We'll keep it at integer, and the lengths and values we'll type in 255. Under the third column, lengths and values. We'll keep scrolling along, scrolling along, scrolling along. Under index, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8th column over at the top, subheading, use that drop-down menu, and we'll select primary. Under AI, we're just going to check that off. That's the most complex thing we have to do for setting up this database. We're going to set up two other tables, two other columns, but they're not going to be nearly as complex. So in the second name under ID, we're going to type in number. We are going to change the type under the drop-down menu, second column. You can hopefully everybody's playing along here. They can see what I'm doing. Click that button there under type, and we're going to change it to the second from the top there called varchar. And under lengths, you guessed it, 255. Let's go back to the third column, and we're going to call this status, S-T-A-T-U-S. Again, no spaces, and identical to the number column above, we'll select varchar under type, and under lengths we'll say 255. Now that is it. We'll go to the bottom right, and you'll see a button called Save. Click Save, and abracadabra, we now have a table. This, and you'll see on the left here, I'll click on numbers. Actually, before I do that, go ahead, click on numbers underneath your database name. And it says it's empty. Well, that's because we haven't inputted any information. So after you click on numbers on the left-hand side, you'll see at the top, you'll see all these different columns. I promise we're almost done with the technical stuff, so just bear with me. Browse, structure, SQL search, insert. Awesome. We want to put something in the database. Let's click insert. A couple of different windows and boxes populate. We're only going to concern ourselves with number. We'll ignore the first drop down here, and right here in this magic box under number, you'll notice there's two. Go, and there's a third at the bottom here. We're just concerning ourselves with this section right here. That's it. And the first go button. So for this particular one, I'm going to say the very, very first earliest number. But before I do that, how can I know which numbers are available in Toronto or where you live? Well, chances are you already know that the first six numbers, you already know that 647, 321, 4 digits following that is a cell number. Your cell number is, whatever it might be, you'll know the first 6 digits, because it just seems to be there's just an overwhelming popularity with 3 or 4 that you can think of off the top of your head. However, you can use something like Kijiji to do this. And if I use a simple search like call my cell on Kijiji, I can see all sorts of phone numbers that have been posted in Kijiji. But this isn't good enough, because what happens is I've got numbers for Edmonton. There's a 780220. That's what we want to grab, the first 6. I've got one for Calgary, 587296. That's all I want to grab. But it doesn't apply to me because I've got all these different cities here. Winnipeg. So what do we do about that? We type in our city. and then we search. And you can actually see in the results return that I have Toronto, Kijiji. In this particular case, I've got 647, 648. I'm grabbing the first 6 digits. Great. There's our first one. So let's throw it into this text pad or notepad here. Well, if I wanted to, I suppose I could go into individual ads. In this case here, I've got contact us 613-600. First 6 digits. I'm going to want to remove any spaces or hyphens, just direct numbers. We'll scroll down a bit and see what else we've got here. Please call or text me at 416-409. Awesome. Great. And so on, and so on, and so on. Now, I've done this before with Toronto, and I was able to get 30 of these combinations, which means theoretically I have over 300,000 that I could send to. And let me show you why. Because the first 6 digits will dictate 10,000 texts that we can send, because the first one, the first phone number, is going to be 0000, and the second one is going to be 10000, or excuse me, that is not correct. What I meant to say was 999. So with this range, I've got 10,000 text messages that I can send. That is just for one section of the 6 numbers that I've got. Guess what? I've got another 10,000 here. I've got another 10,000 here, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So it's very simple to see how you can derive lots of numbers through using a simple search like Google and on Kijiji. I don't even have to say call my cell. I think cell phone had better results. And actually, you know what? 647 was very popular. So I typed in 647, and that's what I did. That seemed to give me a lot better results. 647, 416, 409, 647, 606, 647, 329, and let me scroll down the page here, see if we've got some more. 647, 342, 647, 400, 647, 972. So those are all subsets of numbers that we could use and have 10,000 texts that we can send. Now, a couple of things. Beside the fact that that's really, really cool, is that they're all not necessarily cell phone numbers. That's the first drawback. However, assuming that they are, the idea is that we'll cycle through every single provider. So if I have all the Toronto providers and all the providers that provide cellular service in Toronto cycled into the script. Remember, I've got these. I've got 4 set up right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? If I want to add one, I just highlight this. I copy and paste it at the bottom. And I add the SMS address, and I change the echo. Then I've got 6. Then I've got 7, and so forth. So that's how you add them to the script. So the idea is that I would take this number, cycle it through every provider through the loop, and then add 1 to it. So guess what? The next number is 647-648-0001. Then it becomes 2. Then it becomes 3. Then it becomes 4. All the way up until I get to my final number to send my message to. 10,000 numbers. Okay. So let's make this script work. So and here's a fail-safe that I have if you want to just do some initial testing. So let's assume we've got the number, let's assume we'll use this number here, 648. This is the actual number, 647-648-0000. It's important to grab those zeros because what you're telling the script, what the script is doing is saying grab the latest number where the status is, there's no status. Status is blank. I'll do this in complete English for you. And we'll go up to, we'll say the first 10 numbers. So notice that I've changed the while. Let me zoom into that for you. That's on line 26. Let's close that pop-up. While I doesn't equal 10. Don't worry about the $sign and the I and that exclamation mark and all that. It's just that number you want to play with. Maybe I'll leave it on here as default so you guys can play with this. As a safety measure, I've got this if statement here. But before we get to that, the first thing I'm doing here is I'm saying, go to the database and tell me grab everything from the numbers column where the status is blank, where there's no status. And the program goes, okay. And I interject and I say, well, if that number is greater than this number, which is all filled with zeros, then stop the database. So this is sort of a fail-safe. And in here I'll put 647, this is worth zooming in twice, 647-648-0010. So that way the program won't go on, it cannot go on and send more than 10 messages. Because I'm going to start at 0000. And the way we do that, and the way we set it up, is we go back to our number character here, and we go to that box on the right that we originally had, and we type in the number. The full number that we want to start at. Not just the first three digits, the full number with no spaces. And we'll click that first go button. And if we click go, we see a one row inserted, everything is good. We click browse at the top. We can see there's our number with no status. So let's see if we can run a little magic here and make this work. So I don't actually feel like emailing these people. So I'm just going to comment out that code here so it actually does not mail. And to speed things up, I think I'll just reduce it to 1 second. So there'll be a 1 second delay and then it will mail, theoretically mail, because I've commented it out. And then move on to the next provider. So I hope the logic makes sense to you. I'm actually going to take out that sleep function at the bottom. I don't need it at the bottom because I have it at the very top here. And basically, once it cycles through every number, we get to this line of code. Now, you don't have to understand what this means, but basically what it's doing is it's saying, you know that number we just sent an email to or a text message to? Change the status to say sent, because we don't want to use that number again. And then I say, you know what? What's the next number that we're going to send to? Why don't we update the number and say add 1 to the last number that we just sent to. So 64764, whatever number that was, 0000 becomes 0001. And maybe we'll go back and forth between the database just so that you can see what's happening. And I'm going to raise it up just a little. I'm going to go to 20 instead of 10. Did I say 10? I'm going to go to 20 just so that you can see the action in the database. Okay, made these changes. Don't forget to save. Top left corner, click File, Save. We've all used Microsoft Word. We all know to save a document. Now, let's drop this script on the server. The SM script here. We all know how to use SMTP. We've got a public file. But for good measure, I'm going to right-click, create a directory, and we'll call this SMF. SMS. I'll click OK. Now I'm going to browse to that directory, SMS. Should be blank. It is blank. And I'm going to grab my script, drop it on the server. Magic. And it's called sms_script.php. So guess what I have to type in? SMS. Well, before that I have to type in the domain /SMS, because that was the directory that I created. And you might be able to just click there and you'll see an index or summary. So let me just double check a couple things here, make sure I got everything set up. Okay, so it's going to loop through 20 times. It's going to pause for 1 second, and it's going to, for every provider, I've got 4 providers, and it's going to update the database. And it's starting at number, what was the number in the database? 647 648 8000. And there's no status. And the cool thing about this is going to magically populate on its own. We can only see one line here, but other numbers are going to populate. The script is doing that. I'm not doing anything at this point, and you won't have to either when you run this, as soon as you start this script. So there we go. It says number 0, but it's actually number 1. So it's sent to Koodo, Verizon, Rogers, Bell, sent. There's the number it's sending to. Koodo, let me zoom in here really quick. Cycled through, send this number to these providers, sent. Send this number to these providers, sent. So that's going to cycle through, and let's refresh this browse page and see what happens with all this. You can see I've got all these magical things populating now. So the logic here is simple. We cycle through every single number, through every provider by looping. Very, very, very simple. And this script automatically updates the database and inputs the next number in line to be sent to. And the cool thing about this is you can base not only inbox anybody or everybody by having this set up, but you can have this run all day long and not get complaints. Okay, so it stopped at 19. Well, the reason it stopped at 19 is because I started at 0 instead of 1. Otherwise, that would have been 20. If you recall, I went from 10 to 20. Let's see what happened to the database. If I click that Browse button again, it should update me with the latest information. And as you can see, I've got a lot of information here. I've got all the numbers that were sent, basically, subsequently too. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, but it stopped at 20. Now, if I ever want to reset this, say I've got a new number, say I've sent my 10,000 out, and I want to reset this database. I don't need these numbers anymore. I can go up here to a button called Operations, located at the top right. We'll click Operations, and under there, at the very bottom, you have to scroll down, there's a button in red called Empty the Table. Not delete, just empty it. So go ahead and click Empty. Click OK when you get that pop-up. And now it is blank. We get that original message we saw when we first created it. So we've got to go through that process again. Not creating everything, just inserting that first number. And you remember it's the 4th or 5th one over. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th one over. We will click Insert, and we can see we've got all this information on the page. We don't care about everything at the bottom here. It's that first go button we want. And under number, in that box under value, beside number, think of this, it's like a battleship, value going down and number from the left, that's when we type our next number. And it's not just the 6 numbers. It's the 6 numbers and 0000 4 times, because that's where we're cycling through. Now, if you really want to be creative, you can go back to cPanel and you can create another database and another table, and you call it SMS2, SMS3, SMS4. You can have multiple users and multiple databases. There's no reason why you can't have, say I've got, mine's called social em underscore SMS. There's no reason why you can't replicate the process and call it 2. And maybe this one is running this segment of numbers. And maybe the next one is running this segment of numbers. Those 10,000 sets of numbers. So I really hope you guys get this. It's fascinating. It's untapped territory for, per se. Not a lot of people are doing this, and I'm giving you a script that's going to cycle through every single number within the 10,000 range and give you the ability to send to multiple providers, so that you've got a really, really good high chance of texting the person. So what you would do is to create another script, do everything that I talked about with creating the database, just put the number 2 beside it. And to have another script going at the same time, all you would do is use your Dreamweaver, click File, Save As, and we'll call this SMS script 2. And when you open that, you have to change this database information. Why? Because you're not going to the original database. You don't want to use the original database because that's being used by the first script. So you change it to the second database, obviously, and whatever password is associated with it. So if you're feeling confident, you can create multiple versions of this script and have them run simultaneously. Now, I'm just trying to think if there's anything I've missed with respect to this video, and I think I've pretty much got it all covered. If for whatever reason you seem a little lost or you've got a few questions about it, then please contact me directly about it. If not, and you're ready to get started, and perhaps you've done some of the setup while listening to this video, what I'd recommend you do is try 50. Just send it to 50 and see how that works. And as soon as you jump back into it, it's going to send it's going to start where you left off. So I've told it here to end at 00020. And we'll say 40 this time. And we'll limit that to 40. Because we've got it saved to a database, where's the file? Not sure why it moved over here. Whenever you make changes to the file, you have to grab it from your computer and update the server and overwrite the existing file. Now, if I decide to run it again, let's say I ran 50, or in this case I ran 20, it should start at the last number that I ended at, which would be 647 648 0020. So I've updated the script. Let's make sure I haven't uncommented that. Okay. So refresh and we do it all over again. And it didn't work because I've got nothing in my database. So let's try that again, and let me actually insert a number in here. That's probably why it didn't work. Make sure there's no space. See how I've highlighted that and I've got a space on there? We don't want any spaces in this field. And you can see where the cursor is flashing, backspace. but we wanted to start at 20, so let's do that. Let's zoom out properly. There we go. Now this will cycle through the 40 that I've set it up to. And after that, I could increase the number and it would start where I left off from before. Alternatively, you could set it up to send the 10,000 to send out. Though this is the other thing I wanted to talk about, is the mailing limitations. Now I haven't blown up and gone above and beyond the mailing limitations, but each of these providers constitutes one send, one email. So if I have one phone number, I'm sending 1, 2, 3, 4 emails to send to reach that one number. Technically it's going to be more like 6 or 7 because that's the number of providers associated with the city that I'm targeting. So just keep that in mind with your mailing limits. And you can adjust the speed by playing with this uSleep function right here. So right now I've got set to 1 second. I can reduce it to 1 millisecond or half a second by taking that 10 and making that a 5. I can reduce it to 5 seconds by taking the 1 and making that a 5. So I've got 5 million or 500,000, that'd be half a second. I could make it go super quick. Now I haven't heard or seen any complaints with respect to this yet with sending mass amounts of text, but then again I haven't blasted. I haven't done a lot of sending with it yet. If you have a compromised cPanel server, then it doesn't really matter. My only recommendation is don't remove that uSleep function because it'll just be sending out way too quick. Actually, you know what? Don't even take my word for it. Experiment with it and try what you want. I would recommend keeping that uSleep function on and slowly creeping it down. Because if we're sending out, let's do the math on this particular one. So we've got 1 second. Every 1 second we're sending to one provider. So every 6, but we've got 6 providers to cycle through. And as we said, one number is, or excuse me, 4 providers to cycle through. So we're sending 1 email every 4 seconds. So that is, if I did my math correctly here, roughly 16 emails, 15 emails a minute. Now, that might not be the fastest pace for you. So what I'd recommend doing is duplicating the script over and over and over and over again until you have multiple instances of it, and maybe changing your 1 second to 0.5, or not 0.5, but just removing the 10. Removing the 10 and making that a 5. And then maybe removing the 50 and making that a 5. And maybe removing the 50 and making that a 5. And it'll belt out the information over and over and over. Cool thing about this script is that your computer doesn't necessarily have to be on to run. And I'll include a second script so that you can check the status. You can literally just go to a page. I believe I've got one here. And you just have to plug in your database information. You know what? I'm going to pause, grab that script, and show you how to set that up. So I've added a status window of sorts for everybody to use. As you can see, I've got my database connection information here. My username, password, and database name. So you're going to want to plug that in there as well. And I'll put this here right now so you can see what to expect with the appropriate titles when you open up this file. Alternatively, you could simply copy the information here and paste it from the original script being sms_script.php. After you've plugged in the information once, copy it there and paste it here. Now, let's upload that to the server. If I can find the file, run the script and show you how you can simply go to status. If you recall, we stopped at number 40, 647-648-0040. I think it's already set to cycle through 40 numbers. Just going to double check that. Yeah, it does cycle through 40 numbers. So if I refresh this, it'll start another cycle going through all 40. Which it did not. And the reason it did not is because I have this failsafe right here under line number 37 of the SMS_script. And it's very good that we do have a failsafe, because once you start this script, it will run until it's done. So just as an extra measure, I've got this safety script here, and I'll replace these with a bunch of zeros so that you can adjust it accordingly. You'll need to adjust it accordingly when you get set up, as I outlined in the first segment of this video. So we'll zoom out, minimize that, and we will go to the FTP client, drag and drop and upload, update everything. Yes, I do want to overwrite that file. And let's try that again. And we'll refresh, and we'll see that it is 647-648. 0041, 0042, 0043. Now, if we have 10,000 numbers running, that is going to be a very big page. Theoretically, this could run through what's called a cron job in the background, and perhaps I'll explain that in a different video, so you can have it run automatically without your browser open. But for simplicity's sake, we will have this second status window in which you can simply refresh this page. I'm just going to use Control-R to refresh, and I'll see where the queue is at for all the numbers I've been texting in a much easier way, I guess is the best way to put it. So with that said, please feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions about how this system runs. My advice is to take your time and pause as I go through the video if you're wanting to set this up on your own, and by all means have multiple versions or multiple instances of this script with multiple databases, even on multiple servers, so you can raise the amount of text that you send out dramatically. And the cool thing about it is they all inbox. You just have to summarize, you just have to find all the providers associated with an area for the numbers that you want to send out to. So I've showed you how you can get that through just doing a simple Kijiji search. I'm including a CSV file with, let me scroll down the page here. That's the thing, this page will just scroll down and down and down and down and down. So it's better just to have one page here where we can just refresh and see where it's at. I'm giving you a CSV file that includes 90% of the cellular companies in North America. If for whatever reason there's a cell network that is not listed there, you can easily find it on Google. That actually happened with a company up here called Win Mobile. So I googled how to send text to Win Mobile, or text SMS address for Win Mobile, and sure enough, it was there. That's basically it. I welcome any compliments on this one specifically, and I will talk to you in the next video.